What's up, painting friends? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Stoof. Today we're going to do an acrylic painting tutorial for a little pupper here, this floofer. We're going to be painting this little puppy that's going to be a big dog. And this puppy has white fur, so this is a good tutorial if you need tips for painting white fur. So to get started, we're using my acrylic paints here. These are my heavy bodied acrylic paints. I'm also using an 8" by 8" canvas. It has a thickness on the side, but we're just going to focus on the front of the canvas today. Also have a cup of water to clean off my brushes. Got a napkin for when I make a mess with the brushes. And we have a variety of brushes here. I have a large flat tipped brush just to get the background stuff painted in, a couple medium-sized flat tip brushes, and a couple finer brushes as well. Some of them are round tipped, some used to be flat tipped, but now they're, they lost some of their bristles. All right, now let's take a look at our acrylic paints here. We have a periwinkle blue here, ultramarine blue, dioxazine purple, bronze yellow, yellow ochre, burnt umber, naphtha red, cadmium yellow medium, burnt sienna, yellow Hansa, magenta, black, and titanium white. To get started with this painting, I'm going to dip my brush in the water. I'm going to take a little bit of purple, water that down a bit, and then I'm just going to sketch out the scene. So first I put a little tick mark in the center here. Since I'm not using the grid method for this one, I'm going to work a little bit more quickly, not focusing so much on making the proportions totally perfect, and I'm going to focus more on getting the white fur to look more realistic. So that's going to be the focus of this video. So that being said, we're not going to use the grid method. We're just going to put a little tick there so we get our canvas separated into 4 quadrants. Just gives me a little better idea as I'm looking at my reference photo where each little feature is on the body of the dog. Alright, so in general we got it sketched out. Now I'm just going to fill in the background colors. I'm going to rinse off that little brush. And we'll switch to this medium-sized brush. I actually don't think I'm going to need that large brush. Alright, so we're going to start with burnt umber and a little bit of bronze yellow. Blend those two together. We'll blend a little bit of magenta in there. And we'll do a little bit of white and a little bit of black. And I'm just going to go back and forth, covering up all that space behind the little pupper. Going over the line just a little bit. Then I'm going to take some burnt umber and just make some diagonals here. Just to make it look like we have a grainy wooden floor here behind the puppy. And you can add a little bit of white and yellow, a little yellow ochre too, a little bit of the red. Brighten things up a bit. Alright, so there's that background part. Now let's work on the bottom, the dog beds. We're going to mix black, white, ultramarine blue, and some burnt umber. A little more ultramarine blue, and a little more burnt umber. And we're just going to go back and forth down here. Maybe a little more umber. Just covering up all that space. You could start with a pure white canvas if you want, or you could start with, like I did, a neutral gray color. If you start with a neutral gray, it might be a little bit easier to build up your whites because you're not working with a pure white canvas behind it. So it won't, like if you start with a pure white canvas, it might make your whites look less bright when you're painting. And if you use a gray canvas like this, you'll see a little bit later, but if you start with a gray base, it might actually help when you're painting your whites. All right, so I added a little bit of that periwinkle blue and a little bit more of my burnt umber and white. I'm just gonna brighten up. It's a little too much, so I'm gonna take the excess paint off my brush and then just go back and forth, let that blend in, blending down into my brown, blue, gray color. All right, now we'll take a little more black, blue, and burnt umber. I'm just gonna add a little lip here for the bed. It's like a little seam here, a little shadow under it. And then we just gotta add a little highlight over that. Just gonna dip that in the water a bit to thin it down. And you just do your nice little white line right over. Let's add a little bit of yellow ochre, white, and we'll do a hint of sienna. And we'll use that right here. All right, so now we got the dog bed on there, and now I'm just gonna clean off this brush pretty well, and we're gonna get the extra water off of that paintbrush. And now we can start adding the base whites for the different parts of the dog. So this dog is laying down on its bed, the natural light from the windows coming from this side, and then the man-made light from light bulbs in the house are coming from this side. So this side of the dog has more of a yellow golden glow from that warm light, and this side of the dog has a little bit more of a cool bright white from the natural lighting. So this side's gonna have a little bit more blues and purples in it. This side's gonna have a little bit more yellows and browns in it. And when you're painting a white dog, you want to try to, you don't want to have too much of a difference between your shadow and your highlight and the fur. You really, to get that separation of the fur, you just want to add some pure white, bright little highlights, little furs with the bright white. So we don't start with bright white. That's the last thing we add at the end, just to like finish, give a little finishing touch to the painting. Now that we know this side is more of a cool whites, we're going to take some white and a little bit of our periwinkle blue, and we'll take a tiny little hint of burnt umber too, and we're just going to add that over here. So see what I mean with the background? Since our background started out as that neutral brown gray, it's making this white look pretty nice and bright. But if we look at the side where I didn't paint it, that makes this white look like a blue. Looks like a cool blue. So that could be frustrating for you if you're working. You're like, I'm painting blue, I'm not painting white. So it might be a little bit easier if you paint your canvas gray brown, or a gray neutral color to start with. And I'm just blocking in this base color here. You want to make sure that when you sketched out your scene with the paint, that the paint is mostly dry, because you don't want to get too much of that purple coming into your fur here. And I'm just kind of going right up to the edge where I painted my background. And I'm starting to just lift the brush up a bit, just to start to add a little bit of the fur look. Get a good coverage of white, make sure none of your base colors peeking through there, like my grays peeking through a little bit. All right, now let's take a little bit of black, a little ultramarine blue, and some burnt umber, one more ultramarine blue. And let's do a hint of this bronze yellow and a little more burnt umber. And that's a good shadow color for right behind the ear. So I'm just, while this paint's still kind of wet, it's drying very quickly today because it's hot in here. I'm just gonna slowly or quickly carry this shadow color out from behind the ear where there's a little bit of a shadow on the dog. Take a little bit of yellow ochre and white, a little sienna in there too. And that's this shadow color starting to warm up a bit up here. Just letting that fade into that base color without making too much of a variation, adding another little subtle shadow there. And now let's work on the shadows down here and over here. So these ones are dark. We got black, brown, blue, purple, and that's just right up on the other side of this paw. Comes down to the base there, and then we start to lighten it up as we come up a little more. So start adding more of your blue and white combo to bring that up to the face. And we got a little bit more of a deep shadow right here on the face. I'm gonna move over to the face now. So I'm gonna take my black and my brown and my blue again. And we're gonna put that right under here. Taking a little bit more brown. That goes right under the nose. All right, then we're just gonna take black and blue, blend those two together pretty well, and put the nose that color. And same thing for the eyes. I'm gonna get a little excess paint off my brush and just fill the eyes in with black for now. Looks a little creepy like that, but it'll look nice later. Again, just to get, since I just used black and I'm gonna switch back to white, I'm gonna clean that off pretty good. And we're gonna switch back to a little bit of this warm or cool white. So I'm gonna take more of my periwinkle blue with the white, and we're gonna put that on the ear. And I'm just using my flat tipped brush so that I can start to drag out some of these little furs on the ear. If you wet your brush down a bit, you'll get an even better little line there. And now we already created the shadow behind the ear, so we have an easier time working on the actual ear. We don't have to go back and work on putting that shadow in behind the ear anymore, unless we just make a little tweak to it later. And then we got a little shadow in the ear right here. I'm going to add a little bit of purple and blue to that. There we go, and mix a little bit of that brown in there too for this little shadow. And we'll work on another shadow right here in between these tufts of fur. Gonna build up this little shadow on the face. Is a little bit warmer, so I have a little bit of ochre added there. I'm just gonna fill that in under the eye here. So I added a little bit more white and periwinkle blue, and we're gonna put that down here. Just kind of let that blend with your little tiny brush strokes, just like little just to get the little furs on the face. And I'm just going right up to the eye, kind of overlapping the black or the purple sketch line. I can make the eye bigger later. That's always something I could do, but I don't want to leave too much space there, or it's going to be more difficult to come back. And if you're more comfortable using a smaller brush here to, make sure you get the intricate little spaces properly filled, then you can use a smaller brush. I'm just using this larger brush to keep moving. All right, and that's about it for the top of the face with the cool color. And then we've got a little bit more down here. And we've got another little highlight right here. Then we've got a shadow, taking brown and black. And we'll take a little bit of sienna right under here. And now let's focus on the warmer colors now. So let's take some white and some yellow ochre, a little bit of Hansa yellow. And that's pretty close to what I want. I'm just gonna add a little bit more white to it. Let's do a little more ochre. It's tricky to get that perfect shade. And some more yellow Hansa. Yeah, that'll do for a base color. Might have to tweak it a bit later. All right, and I'm just gonna add that here. Get the little furs on the outer edge. And I'm just bringing this right up to the cool painting color, the cool white. All right, so now I'm going to start to work in some shadows here as well. I'm going to take more of my burnt umber and black, a little sienna too, a little more black, and a little more sienna and a little bit of yellow, cadmium yellow medium. Just going to work these shadows in between the tushy and the tail. And you just kind of lightly sweep up the brush to get a little bit of that in there. And then it's kind of in shadow right here on this side of the foot. You can blend it with your lighter color on the palette and then start to add that. Let's add a little more sienna. Let's do sienna and yellow medium and white. And that's a pretty good little shadow color there. Add a little bit more cadmium yellow medium and white. Color that's not too dark of a shadow. There we go, that's pretty nice. All right, then we're just gonna add some of these just to show the fur coming down. And then you can make a few of these a little bit darker. And then here we've got that little gap between the head, the leg. Mix a little bit of blue and purple into that. Right there. Couple shadows right in this spot. And let's see, take a little more white. Got a bit of a shadow here. It's a little warmer. All right. A little more purple and white. I'll add that shadow. Mixing a tiny little bit of brown in there too. And we're gonna add that shadow right behind the head so we can separate the head from the neck. Or the shoulder, whatever this is behind the head. Just kind of going out in all directions away from the head is the way that the fur is oriented there. All right, let's add another little bit more sienna and get this foot a little bit darker. So we're gonna take a little bit of sienna, black, purple. Just gonna dip it in the water a bit. And basically all of these shadows on the tail kind of come out from the outside of the tail and go in towards the center. And then in the center, you've got these little crisscrosses where the fur's coming out. All right, that's basically the tail. And we're gonna add a round of highlights over that. That'll make it come to life for real. But for now, we're gonna leave that part and we're gonna keep working. I'm gonna take a little more white, cadmium yellow medium, and I'm gonna add that right on this side of this paw. On that side at least. And then the other side is a little cooler. So I'll take a little bit more of my blue and white. Didn't totally clean off the brush, so it's not perfectly cool. Okay, got the base colors for those two paws. And now let's work on the warm face again. So we're gonna go back to our yellow with white. Add a little more Hansa in there. And we've got a little bit of cool on this side, but I'm gonna start with the warm. And then we'll add that cool highlight as a highlight at the end. Just bring this down. Get this little ear. Gonna add a little bit more sienna here because it's kind of cooler. Well, not cooler, but yeah, it is cooler. So we'll add a little bit of ultramarine blue too. All right, so in general, we got that filled in. Now I'm just gonna clean off my brush a bit, take some black and purple and sienna. I'm just gonna put a deep shadow right there. All right, so now I'm gonna put this brush away. I just rinsed it off. And I'm using my smaller brush. Used to be a flat tip brush, but yeah, now it's not. And again, I'm not gonna go into too much detail here. If I were doing this as a commissioned pet portrait, I go into way more detail, but for this one, we're doing a tutorial focusing more on how to teach you guys how to paint eyes. So taking a little bit of bronze yellow, some of my sienna and black. And I'm gonna mix a little bit of purple in there too. Little like eyelid, eyelash looking thing, that's really cute. And then she's got a shadow right here. There's a little brown in there too. Just got the excess paint off my brush and I'm kind of just letting that bleed in. Now let's go back to our yellow color. And then for the white in the dog's eyes, I'm just going to take a little bit of black and white. Don't want to use pure white still. Now the next eye, start with the black. Gotta try to make sure I'm keeping these the right shape and the right proportions to each other. So their shapes are different here because this eye is resting on here, so I think it like brought the fur down a little bit, and this eye's a little bit more like tall looking, this eye's a little wider looking. So that's okay. They don't have to be perfectly symmetrical if that's not what you're seeing in nature or in your photograph. But just to make sure, you know, you're not making one eye 3 inches tall and the other eye 1 inch tall, and there we go. Now the eyes are looking more realistic. And let's work on the nose some more. So I'm gonna take a little more black, build up that shape of the nose. And I'm gonna take some blue, ultramarine blue and white. And we're gonna add that right here. Got a nice cool highlight on the nose. Add a little more white, brown, and purple. Let's do a little sienna in there too, and blue. And put that one right here. Then we're just going to keep adding blue. I'm going to add a little bit of sienna to that. We'll keep adding white and then some sienna. Can add a little bit of that periwinkle blue for right here. Clean off the brush, take a little bit of brown and black. And we'll just, whoops, kind of blend that in there. I'm just take a little white, kind of fuzz out that edge. We don't have like a super hard edge. The top of the nose kind of fades into the face fur color. Okay, and then I've got another little highlight right at this edge of the nose there. Another one right here. Okay, and then I'm gonna mix a little bit of gray and purple. And I want to put a little bit of a lighter color than black here so that we can still tell where the nostril pieces are. So it's really subtle. All right, let's also add a little shadow on the dog bed here. So I'm just mixing blue, a little bit of bronze, yellow, and black. And let's add a little bit of sienna to that too. And it just goes right under there, under this pot, just right here. And under this paw, got one right there. We're gonna do another round of a couple little shadows, and then we're gonna do highlights on the face. So for the shadows, we're gonna mix some of our burnt umber with a little bit of bronze yellow and some white. And we need to cool that down, so I'm gonna put a little periwinkle in there. Let's do a little ultramarine blue too. And let's do a little bit more sienna. All right, that's good. Now we just gotta brighten that up by adding a little more white. And I'm going to dip that in the water just to thin it down. I put a little more ochre in there. And we can do that center line that goes down the face. And I see that that is not too dark. So I'm just going to go back to that first color I had and add that shadow there. And just kind of blend that out from that central line. The fur is it's kind of going up and out. Both sides of the face here. Another one right there. And this is where our subtle color comes in. You can add a little more white and ochre. Yep, it's good. Start to add some more shadows on the ear here. Fur on the ear kind of goes out and down. And I just gotta fade out this shadow so it's not too intense. Take a little more purple. Got a couple shadows on this side of the face. Some more purple. Mix in more black and blue, and we'll do a little sienna, purple, little periwinkle. Got like the deepest shadows down here and over here. And we're just going to take our pure white and going to get that on there pretty thick and just start to add the white in spots where we have a pure white highlight, and try to keep your brush work smooth so you still have a nice little blend transition from shadow to highlight. If you want to dip it in the water, you can. Definitely helps me. And when you add your pure white, that's when you start to see a bigger change in the shadows. So if you feel like you made a little too dark of shadow, then you don't want to use pure white for your highlight. You want to use a color that is like white with a little bit of black mixed in, or with a tiny little bit of blue or brown mixed in. Then we never really get a true bright white highlight over there, so I'm going to mix a little bit more of my cadmium yellow with white and sienna. And we'll do a little hint of umber. Just mix a little more white in there. And that's about the brightest. I'll add a little Hanzo too. That's about the brightest highlight we'll get on this side. Can add maybe a little hint of black in there too. I've got a pretty light highlight right on the right side of the snout, and the rest of it just kind of fades into shadow. Kind of got a white highlight right there. And we've got like a highlight in the shadow. Just mixing my yellow, black, and a little brown in there. Let's do a little bit more black. Another little highlight down here. Before it fades into that shadow. Just gonna build up this little shadow down here again. We definitely got a nice bright highlight right here. All right, face is looking good. Just gonna touch up a few little furs down here. Some shadow colors. Little highlights in the shadow. All right, let's add, oh, we forgot to do that part over there. Let's take some blue with that dark brown color I had, and we'll just add that there. And we'll just add a little of that right there. And then we gotta add a little shadow down here. Good, all right, so let's take some of our sienna and black. And a little bit of ultramarine blue. And we're just gonna sketch out those paws again. All right, so we got the little crevices there. Let's take a little of our napple red and some yellow ochre. Just put that at the base of these paws. Same thing down here. Gonna sketch out these paws. Let's do a couple little shadows on the paws and then we'll do the highlights. Taking some bronze yellow with white. Adding that for some shadows. Seems like there's a little more yellow down here. A little more shadow on that side. And let's take a little bit of purple and sienna. All right, now we're ready for a highlight on this one. So I'm gonna take my pure white. Take just a tiny little hint of that periwinkle. I'm just adding my little bright white highlights. Okay, paw's looking good there. Next paw, let's do shadows, then highlights. Again, so we'll start with the brown and burnt sienna and black. It's a little darker around the base of these paws. We basically have black for these paws here. All right, now I can do our highlights. Gonna add a little periwinkle blue to some of these. Then we just got the yellow highlight over here. A little yellow and sienna. Oh, a little more yellow. I mean white. Get our little shadows in between the paws again with our sienna and black. All right, that's looking good. Now let's just do our highlights on the fur. So I'm gonna clean off that brush. Just take some pure white again. And start to add these highlights. Kind of making little circle motions and lifting up the brush as I'm coming off of the fur there. I'm gonna keep this nice bright white highlight going all the way back. And back here, it's still kind of coming away from the head, just like all the way around like this. I'm gonna pull this in to your little shadows behind the head. So I think you guys get the idea by now. Starting to speed things up a bit so I don't get too caught up on the details. You can add another little shadow again if you need to, whoa, if you need to touch up any little spots. A couple little highlights over here. I'll add a little yellow Hansa and cadmium yellow. Just add our warm highlights and then add a round of warm highlights back here. So this is with a little bit of the yellows blended in. A little bit more sienna And yellow ochre. Maybe a hint of black. Then get a little more brown down here. All right, now we can do more highlights on that tail. Add a little more Hansa. Just watering down the paint still to thin it and make it give me those nice smooth lines. And the sections on the side of the tail. And then I just got to touch up the face a little bit here. Yeah, and you're welcome to, keep adding as much detail as you want. There's more you could do with the fur to make it separate a bit more. Actually, I see one more section that needs a little highlight here. All right, well, that's about it for this painting tutorial. You guys can add another little layer of highlights if you want to make it stand out a little bit more. But in general, that's what you need to know to be able to paint white fur on a little pupper. Hope you guys enjoyed this painting tutorial. If you have any questions or if you have a comment, just leave a comment below this video. If you guys recreate this painting or any other painting from my tutorials, then you can post it on your Instagram page and tag me, the painting Stoof, so I can see it. I'd love to see your work. You also could post it on my Facebook page, the painting Stoof. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you have a great day and happy painting. I also want to give a special shout out to Jackie, who is supporting me on Patreon. Thank you, Jackie. I hope you appreciated this painting tutorial. This one's for you. You have an extra special great day. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.